old school.
Going to be stolen, I think, by the doctor. Yes, he's got it. Ray rocked the baby to sleep and slam dunk.
Stolen by Bird and the cut to DJ. Yeah!
Buckle up for Kobe Bryant.
New era.
Oh! A jawbreaker! Curry, way downtown. Bang!
It's all basketball.
A spectacular move by Michael Jordan.
Lace 'em up. It's time for 1010XL's Open Gym. Leading the break, here's RJ Saunders.
It is the basketball show for the basketball fan. It is a little show we like to call the Open Gym. RJ Saunders here with you. Filling in for Casey today, John O'Leary. He's here. But most importantly, you are here. We thank you so much for being a part of the program wherever and however you are listening. We're at the doorstep of the NBA Conference Finals in both the East and the West. Boston currently waiting on their winner, their opponent, who they are going to face. New York and Indiana will be playing later on today in their Game 7. Dallas, in what was a classic game, how about that fourth quarter, will now be awaiting the winner of who I presume to be going to the NBA Finals. The winner of Minnesota and Denver. Should be a great day of basketball today. Your way on to the show, the text line 641-1010. You can also hit us up on YouTube on our live stream at the MyBookie Digital Studios. Just search 1010XL. Question of the day: name an NBA player whose game you loved, but you couldn't understand why. He wasn't a superstar guy, but you loved watching him play. Rudy Gay came to mind for me. Lamar Odom, I loved his game when he was with the Clippers. Won 2 championships in L.A. with the Lakers. Let me know your thoughts. 641-1010. All right, let's get right into it because I wanted to start the show talking about Bronny James. We may get into that a little bit later on. But my heart is filled with a bit of sadness, guys. Because we may be on the precipice of a good thing coming to an end. Let me paint the slide for you. Here at 1010XL and 92.5 FM, right? I'm beginning to learn something. And I wasn't a big radio guy growing up. My dad would put on Howard Stern when he was on terrestrial radio. He'd put on the Steve Harvey show. Didn't listen too much to Big Boy at the time. I love him now, but at the time growing up, didn't listen to too much of Big Boy or Ryan Seacrest. But in terms of the relationships that are built when you're on a show and how that connects to a listener, how that connects to the audience, whether it be a TV show or a sports show, when you find that and you find that secret sauce, gosh, you fight like hell to not give that up. You got things like The Drill here at 1010, Dan and Jeff. They've created that relationship with you guys. They have that relationship that you hope it just never ends. I felt the same way when I was with Rick on Into the Night when we had our 3-year run there. And the dynamics seem to work, right? It's, older guy, younger guy. He's from Boston. I'm from L.A., so you have the sports rivalry there. He's a rock guy. I'm a hip-hop guy, but we made it. It worked in so many beautiful ways. But now when it comes to the basketball world, it seems to me that we may be losing the show that has brought all of us together as basketball fans with Inside the NBA and the NBA on TNT. Now, I'll admit, we've all said at one point or another we would love to see the NBA on NBC back because we hear round ball rock. We remember where we were when Jordan hit the final shot, and that was an NBC game. The final game they did as a network having the NBA rights, I believe, was the Lakers' last championship, the three-peat in 02 against the Nets. Some memorable and great calls from guys like Marv Albert, Bob Costas, You had Isaiah Thomas and Irvin Magic Johnson. Jordan's first matchup with Kobe was an NBC game. But it felt just like a time. That felt like a vibe. You know, if the deal goes through and the NBA on NBC is able to get the NBA rights back, what are we thinking? Hannah Storm's going to come back with Tom Tolbert, Peter Vesey? Zeke's going to come back? And I don't think we loved, personally, I don't remember, help me out on the text line if you do, the pregame and postgame show. Did you really watch it when it was on NBC? TNT has done something very remarkable where they've had guys come in and out of that studio. Remember, once upon a time, they had Chris Webber be a guy. Magic Johnson was a long-time guy. I think Reggie was in and out of the studio. Then they allowed him to call games. Ernie, Kenny, Charles. Then Shaq comes in after he retires, and it's been just a wonderful mesh. We could be saying goodbye to these guys at the end of the year. It's not going to be the same. Wherever Charles goes, he has something in his contract where he could go somewhere else should this go south. It's like ESPN may pay out the woodwork to get him. But what? Is it going to be the same? I don't think so. Let's just say Shaq goes somewhere. Shaq does his own thing like Kevin Garnett. He goes on Showtime. I think Showtime's on the outs. But let's just say he does his own independent thing. Are we going to search out and watch Shaq, just solely Shaq, for his expertise? Kenny, I would assume maybe he gets on somebody's coaching staff. Ernie, I love the guy. He's saying he's going to stay at Turner no matter what. So I would assume maybe they put him on NBA TV? Is that how he rides into the sunset? Is this it? If it is, I want to do this. Let's reminisce a little bit. I'm going to give you a couple of my favorite moments from the NBA on TNT. And I'll say my first overall greatest moment, which it would be hard to just listen to it. You would have to see it. But it's when Kenny Smith is trying to reenact Kobe's jumping over the car and he gets ran over by the car. That was one of my favorite moments. But I'll give you this first one. I think this was in like 2006. Could have been like 2007. Charles is the guy that he's self-deprecating. He can make fun of himself. He can take a joke. And apparently he wasn't in the know about what was going on, but he found out quickly that you don't mess with a guy by the name of Wayne Newton.
I have no idea what you once did to Wayne Newton, but Wayne Newton is not happy with you. Can you recall anything
you can't beat Wayne Newton? See, I like Wayne Newton.
What did you do to him? Because
I've been to his house, too.
You know what? The feeling is not mutual.
Well, what happened?
I want you to go back and I want you to tell that big that I don't need his shit. Okay? I don't put up with his shit. Don't make me come to the ATL and bust a cap at his big ass. Don't make me get all Marv Albert on him. Wayne Newton don't put up with from him to nobody else. Real talk.
That was one of my first introductions to the NBA on TNT because I didn't have cable at the time. So my pregame show, of course, as a Los Angeles Laker fan, was James Worthy, John Ireland, who we had on a couple weeks ago, and Alan Massengale. And they would have their pregame show talking about the Lakers. But this was a national show talking about the NBA at large. And that's one of the first moments that was for me, which was absolutely hilarious. The second most hilarious thing, Stephen A. likes to talk about how once upon a time ESPN and their pregame show was #1 ahead of TNT. But Charles and the gang give a little bit of a diss track to ESPN. John, hit it.
39.
Why don't you go to ESPN and then I can not talk to you?
He's not going to work me like a dog and not pay me.
Four straight wins for Golden State. After losing to
Why
San
wouldn't you go to
Antonio.
ESPN? Why wouldn't you go to ESPN?
They're not going to work me like a dog and not pay me.
I'm just saying.
The things that happen on this show.
ESPN 1, 2, 3,
You know what?
ESPN News, ESPN U, ESPN Radio, and then come up with that little puny trick.
Nothing.
You wake up.
I'm telling you.
Nothing good happens after 1:15 in the morning.
ESPN Deportes. They have me on ESPN Deportes say, muy bien, gracias. La muchacha, Emelito.
Give me your favorite moments, 641-1010, of inside the NBA or the NBA on TNT. I'm seeing the 0340 talk about it's going to be a sad, sad day for hoop fans if the TNT studio show bites the dust. It absolutely is. It certainly is. It's going to be tough. I don't know if there's another studio show out there. I don't know who NBC goes and gets. I don't know who ESPN. I don't like their team. Stephen A., Malik Andrews, Michael Wilbon. And I guess they try to have Kendrick Perkins as the Charles for them, but it just doesn't work for me. A couple more before we get to the break here and talk about the current NBA playoffs and the landscape of the NBA playoffs as we get to the conference finals. Charles Barkley has a love-hate relationship with the city of San Antonio. Well, he had to apologize to San Antonio for one crazy reason that, to me, is absolutely hilarious.
I want to apologize to the women of San Antonio. Because, Ernie,
What happened? What happened to prompt this? This has been going on for a good
Ernie,
12 years.
I had churros last night. I see what all the excitement is about. I had churros last night.
Talk to him, Tuck. Talk to him. What was they like?
Man, I was eating churros last night. Them damn thing good, Ernie. Them churros good. I see why they got all the big old women down in San Diego. Man, them churros are the bomb.
Don't break the set.
Charles, such a big guy, isn't he? Such a big boy. Because of the food. Last one before we get out of here. I got to admit, I thought he was making sense. When Shaq first got onto the scene, it seemed like he wanted to be the, I have all the knowledge of the NBA, but soon became the guy that would egg on Charles, would also, laugh at his own jokes. But this was really one of the first times I saw Shaq actually serious, and he thought he made sense. What's his philosophy on gas?
I want to apologize. Great education.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I told him I didn't want to get a certain vehicle because of the amount of gas I would have to spend.
Yeah.
It cost like $80
To fill it up.
Fill it up.
And he
Right.
said, then you said,
When it gets to half, then you put $20, you bring it back to full.
but if I keep doing, I would have to stop more often and still
you
spend
wouldn't.
80.
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
Why?
You're complaining about when it gets to 0, you spend 80, right? When it gets to half, you put 20. Then when it get back to half, you put 20.
Yeah, but I'll keep stopping, putting 20 in, and it'll be 80,
Kenny.
the same amount as gas. I'm driving the same amount of gas.
The average human stops once a week for gas, right? With you only work here twice. You would probably have to stop maybe once every 2 weeks. Don't even try it.
This is bordering
Nobody travel
on.
more than me.
This
Well,
is
I'm not-
bordering on what's closer, the West Coast or the moon.
So
This
wait,
is bordering on that.
You're
you're telling me that I wouldn't have to, if I didn't let my gas get down, I wouldn't have to fill it up as much?
No, I'm saying you're complaining about the $80. That's what the conversation about. You.
But 4 times 20 is 80 because I'm going to stop 4 times.
No, you're not going to stop 4 times. No, you're not going to stop 4 times. Not in 1 week, you're not.
So you're telling me that I would not have to, if I didn't let my gas get down, I wouldn't have to fill it up as much?
No, you're not going to stop 4 times. No, you're not going to stop 4 times. Not in 1 week, you're not.
Anyway,
Kenny,
the West Coast is closer than the moon.
if you let it get to 0, right, Monday through Friday, right, then you got to pay 80 to fill it back up.
Right.
Okay, but if you let it get to half by Wednesday, then you pay 20.
No,
back
it won't get to half by. Right, but if Wednesday it's going to be 40, and then on Friday it'll be 40.
Not 40,
again.
20.
Yeah.
It's going to be 20.
No.
It's going to be 20.
Not half. Half of 80 is 40.
But no, listen to what I'm saying.
I am.
Okay.
So if I just
No,
put
you
20
ain't gonna
every
have to
day-
put gas in every day. Don't play me right now.
I'm not playing.
Don't play with me right now.
I'm sorry.
The NBA on TNT has certainly given us a lot of magical moments during their time, if this is the last time. And it'll break my heart. It's absolutely going to be sad. Give me your favorite inside the NBA on TNT, whether it's their pregame show, halftime show, even the postgame show. Give me your favorite moments. 641-1010. They create magical moments. We do the same thing as well. With this magic moment.
This magic moment is brought to you by MyBookie. Experience the biggest thrill from the comfort of your phone anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie.
Since they started giving the Most Valuable Player award to the winners of both the Eastern and Western Conference in the playoffs, you know what? I understand that he's the betting favorite right now, Nikola Jokic, but I don't think that Denver wins tonight. Give me Anthony Edwards to take his team to the Western Conference Finals, win it, go to the NBA Finals, and he is named the Western Conference Finals MVP. Right now, that's at a plus 370. I don't know who's beating Boston in the East, whether it's Indiana or New York. I feel the Eastern Conference has been the Boston Celtics Invitational. Give me Jason Tatum at minus 220 to win the Eastern Conference Finals Most Valuable Player Award. When we come back, we will look around the association a bit more, talk about what's going on in Dallas, talk about what's going on at the NBA Draft Combine, or the Combine that has passed with Bronny James. He had a couple of quotes that were on his mind a little bit earlier in the week. This is the Open Gym on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
Disappointed in New Orleans. Where they going, Chuck?
Galveston. That dirty ass water. We're not even gonna send them to Cancun. We're gonna send them to Galveston where that dirty ass water be washing up on the shore. You people think they're in the beach. Y'all located. We y'all gonna send y'all to Cancun. Y'all drive y'all quit. Drive your ass down to Galveston. Come on, man.
So they're not taking a little.
Come on, they didn't even try, man. We're not getting them no plane ticket to the beach. We send their ass to Galveston, Texas, right where that dirty water washed up on the beach. They can't even get in the water.
It's more than a game.
No matter how talented you are, it still comes down to that brotherhood of playing for one another.
1010XL. It's why we play.
Men, are you suffering from erectile dysfunction or PE? The medical providers at Prime Men's Medical Center offer breakthrough treatments that eliminate problems in the bedroom without pain or surgery. 98% of men see instant results on their first office visit. Listen to a specialist in men's health.
I'm Dr. Simovitz. Prime Men's Medical Center offers breakthrough medical treatments that eliminate ED and PE. Men are even lasting 90 minutes or longer, regardless of age or medical history.
But that's not all. For a limited time only, call Prime Men's Medical Center now, and your initial consultation and first treatment are completely free. You'll see instant results right in the office. You'll even get a gift that enhances your performance in the bedroom. All this, worth hundreds of dollars, is free if you call now. 904-664-8217. 904-664-8217. That's 904-664-8217.
What's the weekend in sports look like? I'm Dan Hicken, and I'll give you my take on The Weekend with Dan. Find it on YouTube and Facebook. Weekend with Dan, brought to you by Stone Core. We do outdoors better.
Hey, Glenn here with B&B Oil with Dylan from March Motor.
Hey, Dylan, how does B&B Oil help you guys at the dealership?
If you have a dealership and don't want to worry about the hassle of credit cards or fuel vouchers floating around, have B&B Oil put a tank on your lot. It allows us to control who gets fuel and cuts out the worries of credit cards. And it helps us deliver the car faster. B&B Oil also meets our shop needs with lubricants as well. Call Glenn or check out the website, bb-oil.com.
What's going on, everybody? It's RJ Saunders here. The NBA playoffs are continuing to heat up. We're at the doorstep of conference finals action, and it's the perfect time to elevate your game with MyBookie. With MyBookie, you can bet from anywhere, anytime, so you never miss a shot to cash in on a play. You can even live stream and bet on the games right from the sportsbook, giving you everything you'll need to decide, whether that's cashing out or letting it ride. MyBookie really makes it easy to get paid with tons of boosted props and slam dunk parlays. And new boosts are now posted on the daily. Guys, this is more than just a sports book. I'm talking buzzer beaters, underdog upsets, and a community to share in all of the sweats. Give yourself a head start today and play with house money using 1010XL when you make your first deposit. That's 1010XL to claim a limited time bonus when you sign up and make your first deposit. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. And guys, don't forget that promo code 1010XL.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555, Jacksonville. Let's ring up another guest on the All-Pro Roofing phone line. It's All Hoops, Open Gym on 1010XL.
It's a little show we call the Open Gym here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM. NBA playoffs continue to heat up. We're getting closer to the conference finals action. Last night, the Mavericks punched their ticket to that third round. They'll face the winner of Denver and Minnesota. That's going to be tonight on TNT. With that, we go to Texas. We'll talk Mavs with Josh Beard, a longtime radio host. He's now transitioning and gives you phenomenal content on the sports world via Twitch, and he'll give us more information on that later on in the interview. But he is kind enough to give us a couple moments here in Jacksonville. Josh, my friend, how are you?
What's going on, RJ? How are you doing today? I'm doing great.
Yeah, man, doing well. So tell me what have been your thoughts on the Mavericks this playoff run, and what did you see in that second round matchup from the Mavs against the Thunder?
Well, I wanted to come on and say never a doubt. Knew they'd do it. I figured they'd finish it off in 6 games. But going into this matchup against OKC, they were the number 1 seed for a reason.
Right.
They won 57 games all throughout the year, and I thought if there's any team that matches up well against them, I think it's Dallas. But the Thunder are – this is going to be a 7-game series. And I'm really glad that it didn't go 7 games because you know how much I love the Mavericks.
Right.
I would have had a heart attack.
Right.
But I just thought that both teams played so hard, and the difference between the two really was just experience. I mean, like, you look at this Thunder team, they're so young, they're so good, and they're so poised for their age. But when it came down to it, especially in last night's matchup with the Mavericks clinching it to go to the Western Conference Finals, I really think it came down to just experience in clutch moments. Like, SGA, no issues at all. That guy is ice cold. Right. I mean, it's ridiculous. But then you saw some missed defensive opportunities, a lot of missed rebounds from the other role players and the other guys on the Thunder. Chet Holmgren had a couple of plays. Josh Giddey wasn't quite up to snuff the entire game. And so I really think it came down to just the fact that 2 years ago we saw not necessarily this Mavericks team, but some of these guys that are on this roster were on a Western Conference Finals team 2 years ago. That experience paid dividends against the Thunder in this series. And we just watched 2 insanely hard-nosed, very, very physical defensive teams play against each other, and it was a lot of fun to watch. But I was happy that the Mavericks pulled it through and made it to the next level.
Absolutely. And wanting to talk about, of course, the star player in Luka Doncic, but I also got to talk about his running mate, Kyrie Irving, because that's now the duo with the Dallas Mavericks. And I got to admit, Josh, I mean, that's a pair that in the beginning I was scratching my head about when the trade was made to get Kyrie. I mean, Jalen Brunson, you may have had an opportunity to keep him. Now he's in New York. So you understood that you needed to get another star caliber player to complement Luka. But Kyrie was a guy at the time many were probably saying, he may be the wrong guy. He's an outstanding player, but the outside stuff just may be a little bit too much, and you don't want to put that around Luka Doncic. But they have been an exciting tandem across the league flat out. What have been your feelings on the duo?
I mean, I was very openly not on board with the Kyrie Irving trade, but they lost out on Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson goes to New York. He grew up a Knicks fan. The Knicks hired his dad on the coaching staff, and I think the writing was on the wall then.
Right.
And they had to replace Jalen Brunson with somebody, and you could feel it in the air that it was going to be Kyrie Irving. And I felt the exact same way as you. I just didn't see it. I didn't see how it was going to work. We had already seen Kyrie try to play with somebody who plays a really similar style to Luka in James Harden, and that didn't pan out. So it looked like this duo wasn't going to work out. But man, I think it's twofold. Number one, I think they both have a lot of experience in the league, and they've gone through a lot of different things where they've gotten to the level where they just want to play with another superstar and try to win things. Like Kyrie's been there, Luka's been there. Kyrie has won things, but he's never really been on an active roster necessarily for it. They've had their issues throughout their careers, but they've also had issues with teammates with their own selfishness, right? We've seen that with Kyrie Irving when he was in Cleveland, when he was in Brooklyn. We saw it with Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. They had a little thing between them, whereas like kind of jockeying for who was the head honcho, who was the top dog. I think both of those things for each player combined has just created this selfless attitude between the two of them, where I think one of the most underrated things about Kyrie Irving isn't even necessarily what he's doing on the court, the 22 points he put up last night, the assists that he keeps repping out throughout the playoffs and during the regular season. It's who he is for this team in the locker room, who he is whenever things go wrong. And he's been crazy positive with his teammates. He's got their back no matter what. And he's been a voice within that locker room with Luka, who's kind of galvanized everybody. And I didn't think it was going to go that direction. I'm really glad it did. But those two guys together with the selfless attitude, you can see the way they play on the court. Sometimes Jason Kidd likes to stagger their time, which works really well. But when they're on the court together, Luka knows when it's time for Kyrie to get the ball, and whenever it's time to try to get him hot. Kyrie knows whenever it's time for Luka to get the ball. And they play really selflessly on the court, and you can see that off the court too. I think the best example of what Kyrie has meant to this team and how he's embraced the culture that Jason Kidd has put in place with the Mavericks and what he's wanted to do with the team is early on in that Oklahoma City series, whenever you saw Kyrie chirping at fans, and he was waving bye-bye to them, and he was talking to the fans that were right there on courtside. That all stemmed from one of the fans rolling the ball away from Luka. I think that was game 1 or game 2 where a fan got the ball. Luka tried to get it back from him. The fan rolled it away from him, and Kyrie went to go defend him. And he talked about it in the post-game press conference. He's like, Luka's my guy. I'm going to go defend my teammate. And that mentality has just been there through these guys all throughout the season. They had to work on it last season. We saw some ups and downs. But this season, it was immediately apparent that this was going to be a thing that they did together, and that has shined throughout the entire regular season and postseason.
He was a longtime radio host throughout the city of Houston. He now gives you his sports concepts and rationalizations on social media. You can follow him at Josh Beard Radio. Is this the best collection of talent that Luka's had on one team, in your opinion?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Like, I can't – this is the second time that they've made it to the Western Conference Finals in 3 years. But the weird thing is, I was talking with a few people last night where 2 years ago they make it to the Western Conference Finals, but it felt a little bit like fool's gold, like they shouldn't have been there. Then they missed the playoffs with Kyrie Irving, and then they make it back to the Western Conference Finals. But if you look at that roster from 2 years ago compared to what they have this year, the role players, some of the guys from the roster 2 years ago are still on the team. You still have Josh Green, but Josh Green was a rookie whenever he was on the team. You still have Dwight Powell, but he doesn't get the minutes. Like 2 years ago, Dwight Powell was the starting center for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yes, he was.
Maxi Kleber, he was coming in, and he had some spots where he'd fill in. But this roster that they have right now, with PJ Washington, Dan Gafford, those guys, trading for those guys was so huge for the Mavericks. But then you add a rookie and Derek Lively playing not like a rookie. He's one of my favorite players in the league. He's so fun to watch. And then you add that, you add all of those guys. Derek Jones Jr., another just absolute phenom. He had 22 points last night. This guy is a 3-and-D. He is exactly what you want from a guy who's trying to make his way in the league. Develop into the highest level 3-and-D player you can, and Derek Jones Jr. has been that. And this collection of players that they've brought in to put around these guys, to put around Luka and Kyrie is so perfect for the fit. And it reminds me, honestly, a lot of the way the Mavericks were built in 2011 when they won the championship, and they were built around Dirk and Jason Kidd. Now, Jason Kidd was older than Kyrie was, so J Kidd couldn't quite do all the same stuff. He turned himself into a three-point shooter, so he couldn't quite do anything else. But you have a lot of shooters, you have a lot of guys that play defense, and you have Tim Hardaway Jr. who can still hold the ball, he can still dribble, he can still handle. You have a lot of ball handlers on this team, a lot of guys who can play the pick and pop, the pick and roll, and there's the main thing that Jason Kidd wanted was versatility, defense, and athleticism, and they have that in droves.
Now, I love the fact that you're talking about the talent surrounding Luka Doncic, because when you look at the other side of that Western Conference map, it's not going to be easy if they're going to look to make the NBA Finals. You have Minnesota and Denver going into a Game 7, and that's been a great battle between those two teams. But is there a team that you feel between those two that Dallas matches up better with?
Yeah, it's Minnesota. As weird as that is to say, as incredible as Anthony Edwards has been, I think the one team, I don't know that the Mavericks have an answer for the versatility of Nikola Jokic and the versatility of the Nuggets in general. So, this is like, between a rock and a hard place, right? If you're pick your poison. Which poison do you want to die by? But I think that the matchup that the Mavericks have against the Minnesota Timberwolves, where they do have Derek Jones Jr., they've got P.J. Washington, they've got bodies that they can put on Anthony Edwards, and really it comes down to playing defense against the Timberwolves would be the same way, it'd be the same concept of what they just did with the Thunder, is stop everybody else, or force everybody else to beat you and do everything you can to stop Anthony Edwards the way they just did with SGA. And it's not always going to work because Anthony Edwards is incredible. He's playing at the highest level we've ever seen him play. The craziest thing is, I think with the level that Anthony Edwards is playing at, I don't even think he's reached his full potential yet. I don't think this guy has peaked. He's only going to get better. He's so good. Yeah. But if you're talking about role players and depth and a team that can kill you from a variety of different ways, and where the Mavericks struggle the most is sometimes they leave guys open and they struggle on the perimeter, and the Nuggets can kill you if you don't guard the perimeter well. Where the Mavericks have been great is being able to defend the paint, keep the ball out of the paint, and then rotate around and rotate that weak side. That's a lot of where the Timberwolves attack, and I think they match up better against that than they do against the Nuggets. Not well, but better. So if there's a team that I had to choose, it'd be the Timberwolves. But can I just go and choose? Can I go and choose somebody like the Rockets or somebody else? Can we just replace them? Is that okay? What are the Trailblazers doing? Yeah, can we put Portland in there?
It's definitely going to be a tough out for sure. Final couple moments with Josh Beard. You can follow him on Twitter at Josh Beard Radio. So I gotta ask this. I love Dirk. Without question, he's the greatest Mav of all time. Is Luka going to creep up on him here in a couple years as the greatest Mav of all time?
No, I knew you were going to ask me this question, man. I try not to be, but I'm such a victim of the moment, and recency bias is really strong with me. So literally the night after the day after Luka Doncic had his third triple-double in a row in a playoff series to go to the Western Conference Finals, you're going to ask me if he can creep up on Dirk. My answer is going to be yes, I think he could creep up on Dirk.
Right.
But the difference is, for me right now, it's going to come down to championship and MVP. Yep. Can he win an MVP? Can he win a championship? Yep. And I just, again, since I'm not tied to any sports outlet other than my own right now, I let my fandom shine through a little bit. Nothing to me, very few other playoff runs for players will beat what Dirk Nowitzki did in 2011. The way he ran through, they struggled a little bit against Portland, then they ran through the Lakers, they ran through the Thunder, and then they beat the Heat. And Dirk was one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant player throughout that season, and except for the time that a little bit of time he spent injured, and then definitely in that playoff run. It's one of the greatest playoff runs of all time. If Luka can win the MVP and he can win a championship, then maybe we can talk about Luka and Dirk being at the same tier. Maybe we can put the Luka statue right next to the creepy, weird Dirk statue that's outside the front of American Airlines Center. I hate that statue; it's awful. But Dirk is definitely the number one Maverick of all time, and I think right now, I could confidently say, and this might be my recency bias, I can confidently say Luka's number 2, yes, with the ability to become number 1 depending on where the trajectory of his career goes and what he can do. But he is absolutely incredible. I think the peaks that he's had and the moments that he's had, like we had a lot of great Dirk moments, but yes, there's literally a term for Luka called Luka magic, right? Like that's, absolutely, you can feel it coming when the moment's big, when it looks like everything's lost. Luka's going to do something insane and then do some kind of finger roll from the 3-point line. Like it's going to be wild. Yes. And you could feel that with Dirk. Anytime Dirk was backing somebody down in the high post, he was going to do that nice little turnaround, one leg fadeaway and hit a shot. But Luka can just kill you from a variety of different ways. And so I think he has the ability to get there, and I'm just excited to be along for the ride and watch it happen.
All right, Josh, before I let you go, man, how can people get a hold of you, anything that you have going on? Let the listeners know how they can hear more from you.
Just follow me at Josh Beard Radio on Twitter and then twitch.tv/Toofpete, TOOFPETE.
That is Josh Beard. Was a long-time radio guy. Met him during my time in Houston, one of the great ones, in my opinion, and he was so gracious and kind to give us a couple minutes here on the program. Josh, thank you, and hopefully we can do this again during the offseason to see what the Dallas Mavericks do in terms of adding and subtracting pieces.
Absolutely. Well, you're skipping. I mean, if you need somebody to talk Mavericks during the finals, during the NBA finals, don't worry. I'm ready to go.
It could absolutely happen. If they go to the finals, you're the first person I'm calling, Josh.
Thanks, RJ.
There he goes, Josh Beard. Follow him on Twitter at Josh Beard Radio. An amazing guy. Also defended our country. Was a part of the Air Force for a few years. When we come back, it's been a rough go for one Caitlin Clark. Should we be worried? Are people ready to hit the panic button? Well, one person isn't. And that is Mia O'Brien. She joins us next here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
I'm Hacker, and Denny Thompson and I will navigate you through the Florida football offseason during the Gator Bites podcast, presented by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. New episodes drop every Friday. Get Gator Bites where you find podcasts.
Get this. Joey and me were supposed to go to this concert next week, right? But then something terrible happened. Joey was driving without a seatbelt. But he didn't wreck. No, he got pulled over. Now Joey has to pay for a seatbelt ticket instead of a concert ticket, and I have to go by myself. How lame is that? So Joey, if you're out there, you're an idiot. Wear your seatbelt or you'll get a ticket.
All across the country, cops are cracking down. Click it or ticket, day and night.
Funded by the Florida Department of Transportation.
We found the computer outlet, sir.
Plug in. No static ever. Download the free 1010XL app for Apple and Android devices and take us with you wherever you go.
At Duck Duck Air Conditioning, we understand the importance of having a properly functioning air conditioning system, especially in hot and humid climates like Florida. That's why we offer a wide range of services, including installation, repair, maintenance, and replacement of all types of air conditioning systems. The Duck Duck Air Conditioning team is available 24/7, so you can count on us to be there when you need us the most. Contact us today to schedule your service and experience the Duck Duck difference. 904-862-6769 or online at duckduckac.com.
Are you ready to help lock down the bank in 2024? Don't miss a single moment when quarterback Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars take on some of the biggest names in the NFL. Become a season ticket member now to get access to exclusive experiences, events, and player appearances all season long. Lock in your seats for 2024 now by going to jaguars.com/tickets or call 904-633-2000. We can't wait to see you at Everbank Stadium.
It's Kubota Orange Days. Shop the year's best selection of Kubota tractors, zero-turn mowers, and utility utility vehicles, including the #1 selling compact tractor in America. And now through June 30th, get 0% APR for 72 months or up to $2,300 off L2502 tractors. See details at KubotaOrangeDays.com.
Greater power for the great outdoors. Coastal Equipment.
Get food prizes and Kubota Orange Days demos Wednesday 8 to 4 at Coastal Equipment, New Kings Road.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Let's ring up another guest on the All-Pro Roofing phone line. You're courtside on Open Gym on 1010XL.
She does quite a bit here at the radio station, from heading the multimedia department, hosting Helmets and Heels weekdays at noon here on the Superstation. I've heard her around the office also doing some interviews with the big brass across the country when it comes to Jaguars talk. However, she is also a hoops head, hoops follower, especially when it comes to Caitlin Clark and her journey and her first season of the WNBA. That's Mia O'Brien making her debut here on Open Gym. Mia, how are you?
I hate to steal a line from another prolific NBA player, but it's about damn time, RJ. Come on now. Glad to finally be making my maiden voyage.
Absolutely. And, we won't waste any time here. So, we'll just get into it. The W absolutely is literally banking on Caitlin Clark and the eyes and the attention. Also, now WNBA teams are able to fly private. Just because of what she's bringing to basketball at large, and especially with the women's game. However, it hasn't been easy when it's been going against certain teams to start. She goes up against the Liberty, and then she goes against the Connecticut Sun to open up her WNBA career. What have you seen from Caitlin so far now, 3 games in her career as a pro?
Yeah, I think that's a very good and important point that you bring up, RJ. 2 of her first 3 games have come against the runner-ups from a season ago. The Connecticut Sun don't have a player on the roster who doesn't have at least 2 years service to the WNBA. Right. They don't have a single rookie on their roster. Right. In terms of evaluating where Caitlin Clark is going to translate to the league, we really don't have any estimate right now because she's going up against teams that are so veteran and so in the hunt for a championship that I think it's unfair, especially when you consider, and this is with all due respect to the Fever, the fact that they are very much in a rebuilding year and they are not a championship roster right now. Right. As much as, yes, they have the #1 overall pick from a year ago in Aaliyah Boston. Yes, they have Caitlin Clark. Yes, they have some veterans like Erica Wheeler, Katie Lou Samuelson. There are names to be had, not to mention Kelsey Mitchell, who was the #2 overall pick. I believe it was, 5 WNBA drafts ago? The point is that there's some talent on that roster, but it's not to the level of, say, the Las Vegas Aces, the reigning W champions, who have 4 Olympians on their roster, or in the case of the super team that is the New York Liberty, multiple MVPs, multiple All-Stars, right, all starting on the floor in the same starting 5. And so that's where it's really tough. I mean, obviously, the stat came out there yesterday. Caitlin joined Candace Parker. I'm blanking on who the other player is, but she's the 3rd player in WNBA history in her first 3 games to have 50 points, 20 assists. It's like some stat that, it seems elementary on the surface, but it speaks to the depth of the W, because when you only have 12 teams and you have women who have been putting in 12 years of service, you have not only the National Player of the Year in Caitlin Clark from last year, the National Player of the Year from 3 years ago in college in Aaliyah Boston, the National Player of the Year from 5 years ago in Megan Gustafson. You have the National Player of the Year from 2005, Diana Taurasi was the National Player of the Year. Right. And so that's where you have to consider the depth of the league as a whole. And the fact that she went up against 2 of the big dogs, if we may, in the W, that says to me that the fact that she did what she was able to do, having 2 20-plus point performances, she's going to be A-OK.
Did you think Diana Taurasi's comments about reality is coming for Caitlin Clark, do you think that was taken out of context by some?
No, because I took it exactly as it was. And look, Diana Taurasi is an entertaining figure, and that's coming from someone who also prides herself in wearing her heart on her sleeve and being authentic. I'm never going to question her for being authentic, but I absolutely took it as this is a shot at Caitlin, because Caitlin is going to have to be my teammate on the Olympic team this summer, and this is me setting the tone and sending a message. Not to be, hey, I'm going to be, bullying you as your teammate. No, but to say, you haven't arrived yet. And unfortunately, and this is a broader conversation, RJ, that we've been having, I feel like, ever since the Caitlin Clark, since just phenomenon, and going to the W became reality when she declared in February.
Right.
The problem is that we're seeing the underbelly, the ugly side of women's sports. I refused to believe it for the longest time. It really was my co-host on Helmets and Heels, Lauren Brooks, who looked at me and said, women are catty. We know they're catty. So why should the W be any different? And it's unfortunate that in an age where we talk about the progressive nature of sport, wanting to advance women's sports to be on a level playing field of their male colleagues, and yet I don't see anybody giving Victor Wembanyama the asides and the welcome to the league rookie comments that Caitlin Clark has received. And so, no, and look, and I said this yesterday, I had a bunch of friends over at the house, and, they're all like, oh, it's just because you're an Iowa homer and you're just defending Caitlin. I said I'd be feeling the same way if it was Paige Beckers. That recruiting class of 2020, that included Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark, Cameron Brink, the list goes on of how elite that recruiting class was. Go back and look at it. From 1 to 15, Angel Reese, I believe, was like the 9th-rated player in that class.
Right.
That class was so elite. We've been talking about what their translation to the W would mean for women's sports as a whole for years. And so whether it was Caitlin, as has come to fruition here, or if Paige had never gotten hurt in her sophomore and junior seasons, and she was the one that reached a point in her college career that allowed for her to be the number 1 overall pick in 2024, I think we'd be having the same conversation. It's just unfortunate that it's come to a head the way it is. But I don't have any ill will towards Diana Taurasi. I'm A-okay with her trying to challenge Caitlin, but no, her quote was absolutely taken the correct way and the way that it was intended.
She is Mia O'Brien. You hear her daily here on the Superstation with Helmets and Heels. That begins at noon on 1010XL and 92.5 FM. Is the WNBA an aces world and we're just living in it?
Yes, very much so. Outside of perhaps the New York Liberty, I was impressed, RJ, with Connecticut Sun. And yes, obviously they were going against an inferior opponent in the Fever in their opener. I was very impressed with the Sun in terms of how they moved as a team. But I was just commenting, even just watching back some of the highlights this morning, because of course Megan Gustafson, a former Hawkeye, and Kate Martin, who made her debut in the Aces game yesterday, her WNBA debut. Just watching how pretty it is and how aesthetically pleasing it is to watch them play basketball. It not only gives me hope for what the rest of the W can look like, that it won't be as clunky as perhaps some of the Fever games have looked just because the personnel is trying to mesh together. Right. I mean, Becky Hammond has that thing as well-oiled a machine as I've seen. And so, yes, a three-peat is absolutely possible. And, of course, it helps when you have 4 Olympians. And, I mean, when Megan, who was the National Player of the Year and certainly has gone through a position change, but she was the National Player of the Year in 2019, if she's the seventh woman into the rotation, that just speaks to the depth of that roster. Not to mention, I've seen lots of flack for Kirsten Bell, the former Florida Gulf Coast product, who I got to call a couple of her games when she came up here to play JU and UNF. She is an absolute baller. She's not starting. That just speaks to where that roster is right now.
Yes.
And it's going to be that way because they've figured out a way to keep everybody happy and keep everybody paid.
Now, I also wanted to ask you this. When it comes to the WNBA, it's certainly expanding. I mean, I miss teams such as the Sacramento Monarchs and the Detroit Shock. You had the Portland Fire there for a couple years, the Houston Comets. I could go on, but the WNBA is expanding to Canada. As they've announced, they're also announcing that they're having a team in San Francisco. What does it say about the league as a whole to be able to expand in such a way as this?
I would say the fact that we've had such an outcry of why not my city, why can't we be next? It speaks to, yes, I think the proliferation of professional sports as a whole in America. Got to shout out the MLS and NWSL, whether you think that market's oversaturated or not. The fact that cities are clamoring for the thought of having that second tier of professional sports below the NFL, below the NBA, to have that extra team and presence in their city. I think it speaks volumes that the WNBA is at that level where, again, look at Jacksonville, for example, if we were to ever be approached with that opportunity. If I'm Mayor Deegan, if I'm anybody in the administration here 10, 20 years from now, hopefully even sooner than that, I'd run at the opportunity because the W, being a summer league, which was for so long regarded as a knock against them, that they couldn't play, go up against the big boys of the NFL and the NBA. Well, guess what? They have 3 months of the year largely to themselves outside of Major League Baseball and NFL training camp. Right. And so that's where I look at that, and I look at a city like Jacksonville, or, you can look at a city like, San Francisco, Oakland, depending exactly how you want to define that team. You look at Toronto, where they have baseball, yes, they have the NBA, but there's no NBA to be played in the summer months, and so there's no hockey either going on. And so I think that then it opens up this whole avenue where it becomes a summer event for families to bring their kids to bring their young girls to. And so I'm glad to see on the business side of things, people are realizing the potential of having a franchise in their city.
Final couple of moments with Mia O'Brien, the co-host of Helmets and Heels right here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM. So let's transition to the NBA really quick before I get you out of here. Two teams have punched their tickets to the conference final already. We'll have the other two do so today. But who's the leader in your clubhouse to win the NBA title?
Can I just begin with this, RJ? I don't care what sport we're talking about. If it's soccer and it's penalty kicks, if it's the NFL and it's a walk-off field goal, to have a game last night come down to 3 free throws, I understand P.J. Washington was not in his shooting motion yet. Richard Jefferson did a great job explaining why Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was indeed called for fouling P.J. Washington. But for there to be 2.5 seconds left on the clock and it comes down to free throws, look, free throws matter, and I respect that part of basketball, but it was just a gut wrench in my, just heartbreaking if you're a fan of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And as we were watching it, my boyfriend Kevin looked at me and said, you know what, I could tell you this, 4 or 5 years ago, knowing how the Thunder built this team, they're going to look back and say this was an important moment for us to lose, to see how we lost to a veteran team that has the pieces like Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, who've been there before. But I just couldn't help but feel heartbroken. Sorry, I had to get that out there because I really wanted to. I wanted to see the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. Look, I mean, I don't want to steal a line from Charles Barkley, but it does kind of feel like it's the Celtics against everybody else, right? I mean, certainly they've gotten to the big dance though before the final stage, and it hasn't panned out for them. And so, could I see a similar situation? Absolutely. I'm very fascinated to see how the Nuggets-Timberwolves Game 7 shakes out, because I do think that the winner of that obviously has the best chance to not only defeat the Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals, but give Boston or the Knicks or the Pacers a run for the money in the NBA Finals.
That is Mia O'Brien. She is one of the hosts of Helmets and Heels. She's also our director of multimedia here on the Superstation. You will be able to hear her weekdays from noon until 2 on the radio station, as well as on our social media channels. Mia, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll do this again soon.
Appreciate you, brother, man, always.
That is Mia O'Brien giving us the latest in the WNBA. That is going to do it for us here on Open Gym. We'll talk to you next week, and we'll get more into Bronny James, and should he or shouldn't he go to the NBA. That'll come next week as we close out another edition of Open Gym.
International soccer returns. For your